Welcome to Tony at 12. I'm Tony LeBlanc, and today I'm in conversation with Simon Brazier and Mark Smith, and we're going to take a look at the Alderney Sports Foundation. Gentlemen, good to see you both.
Thank you.
Can I kick off with the mission statement and we can then build off from that? Okay. So, the Alderney Sports Foundation is dedicated to improving sporting opportunities for young people on the island of Alderney. With the dedication of our partner clubs, organisations and volunteers, we strive to improve the lives of our children through the power of sport. Excellent sentiment, in my view. Shall we start off with the Alderney Island Games Association? Because that's a sort of regular thing that I guess you're involved in.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. My role in that is for about 3 years now, and I'll probably see through 2 cycles of biannual events. The place to start actually really feeds off what you've just said about the mission statement for the Alderney Sporting Foundation. The International Island Games Association was formed in 1985. Alderney was one of the 9 founder members, of which there are now 26. And actually their mandate at that time, and the reason for coming together for these games, was to give the opportunity for sporting activity at an international level for the youth. So it's targeting the youth, but it also made the statement that in order for youth to be prepared to enter these games, that the states themselves, the member states, would also over time develop facilities so that youth could participate in a range of sports and benefit from those facilities and coaching domestically. So the Alderney Island Games Association mirrors that. And frankly, that's my reason for being involved. I believe in sport for youth because of my own experience. You see how people develop. In simple terms, some people may not be academic, but they can shine at other things, and that builds them. It allows them to feel confident in their environment, within their community, their peer group, and more importantly, achieve. And when you achieve in one field, you know you can achieve in others. This is the human spirit. So for me, sport in the community is all about the wellness in the community. It's not just to focus on youth.
So, Simon, you were very much involved with the setting up of the foundation. Was it difficult to get it underway? I mean, I know you've got a very famous patron.
So Duncan Goodhue clearly has been a big supporter, and and he speaks so passionately about what sport did for him in his life. And I won't, everyone knows pretty well that story about how sport transformed his life, and he's done a lot in relation to that ever since. But I've been coming to Alderney since I was born, and I've played cricket for Alderney, and I think there was a generation of Alderney youth who've come through who've been big supporters of the football club and the cricket club. So you look at the Adamson brothers, the likes of Chris Chadney and Sean Malloy, and all these guys, the Concannons. And they played sport here from a very young age, and they came through. And then there seemed to be a gap after that, and I saw a lot of kids loitering on street corners, etc. And it felt like there was an opportunity to really bring things together, which we did. So we it's not all been fully successful, but we've over the last 5 years, we've done some really positive things with a variety of the clubs. The sailing club, I think, is a really good example where we've got this year I was so proud to see that the summer sailing courses, which used to be basically full of visitors, kids on them, are pretty much now fully subscribed by Alderney residents' children, and we fund every single child who goes through St Anne's will get a week of sailing courses paid for by the Sports Foundation. So that's a good example of us starting to get people to do that. And now here we are 5 years on, and there are some I've just been playing padel tennis and watching the kids playing tennis. On Saturday morning, you're seeing the football is now reinvigorating itself with a lot more younger kids playing football, and we can talk about some of the other sports as well.
Yeah, sure. We've got a list.
I'd like to think that we're making some strides, but the reality is, I've always said it's not me. I mean, I can help facilitate it, but actually it is having that partnership with the clubs, with the school, incredibly importantly. Martin Winwood was a big supporter, and Wendy, the new well, not so new head teacher now, is a big supporter as well. So it's about trying to bring those things together and provide those facilities.
Was it difficult to get the initial funds?
Well, yes and no. So what actually happened was we initially had a very generous benefactor who I helped facilitate a contribution from them to the football club. They want to remain anonymous.
Yeah.
And they were so pleased with what that had done. They said, how else can I help? And I said, well, if you really want to help, there could be a bigger way of doing this. And therefore we came up with the foundation, and they provided that sort of initial bedrock of funding, which enabled us to get going. So, and then since then, we've had some other they know who they are, very generous people who've helped, in relation to the padel tennis courts, for example. And so we have been able to do things because of the generosity of certain benefactors.
Yeah.
And you will accept individual donations, I see from the website. So, people are invited to make a contribution if they can.
Well, and actually, to be honest with you, I've always said I'd rather have 100 people giving us £10 than one person giving us £1,000. Because and that consistency. So you can go on the website. It's very simple to work out how to donate. And we would encourage people to do that, because I think we are making a real difference, with the youth here. And to Mark's point, it's the most important thing about this island. I mean, we can talk about runways and all the rest of it, but if we don't have a vibrant community of families with children who want to be able to live on this island, and I'm sure we'll come on to facilities later, which is a moot point.
Yeah.
But it is very important that we provide those facilities so young families want to stay on Alderney, for all the benefits that will bring.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, because at the moment things look as if it's going to end up as a rest home for the likes of me. And we need to keep families here, and as you say, if you can help through sport to keep the children active, that's got to make sense. Shall we take a look at some of the projects on at the moment? The Alderney Amateur Boxing Club. Got some info on that, Mark?
Yeah, thank you. And actually, it does really feed directly to what we've just been saying. So, first thing to say, we have benefited from grant monies from the Alderney Sporting Foundation, in the past, which has allowed our youth to develop themselves through coaching and competition in Guernsey or elsewhere. That's extremely important. I've been involved, and my father before, actually, in a quiet way, but I've been directly involved on the committee, serving as chairman for a while, effectively going through a rebirth of that club. There were some very notable coaches who took the club through many good years, and we've had some excellent results from that. But inevitably, there's been a change. This September, October, we hope to relaunch. We will have two existing coaches, but others who are coming through. We, including myself, have done first aid courses. We've got a welfare officer in charge. And most importantly, the fabric of the building. We're a tenant of the Estates of Alderney, renewed the 21-year lease recently, sensibly allowed the rest of the premises to be looked after by the Alderney Society, and what a great job they've done. So we coexist well, but we have a roof that doesn't leak. We've got windows that don't leak but need replacing, a false door that needs replacing, and internal walls. But actually, collectively, I've been there with the others, painting floors and so on. So we're ready to get going again with some strength. And hopefully, and this is my experience, when people come to visit the club, they will see how the children arrive and immediately fall into what I would call a controlled, disciplined environment. Because boxing is a martial art. And there is a continuum as to how these children come through. There's been a shortage of that opportunity, and we're now back.
What's the situation with regard to women, ladies, girls?
Boxing? Oh, fine. Absolutely no trouble at all. From a welfare point of view. And also there is a lady who is joining us who has skills in that area. And I can also say, at the instigation of the Guernsey Youth Commission, Mandy Robinson from the Amalgamated Club in Guernsey has also come into the school with the programme, taking them through to the Guernsey Schools Games. Alderney was for the first time invited last year. And what I can say anecdotally, I wasn't there, but Mandy said this with some emotion. She had seen some of the children grow over the months that she coached here. And at the initial stages of the competition, there was one competitor in particular who was falling well short of her capabilities. But in the process of encouragement from all, she outshone the rest.
That's
Okay.
incredible, isn't it? Yeah. Now,
You,
presumably,
yeah.
you supply all the headgear and the gloves and everything. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We fortunately we have some money in the coffers. But we have also benefited in the past from the Emmy Cheap Fund, as I say, the ASF.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm not proud. I'll go anywhere. In the past also, there was another charity operating in Guernsey who actually stepped in at the first instance. So we're okay.
Yeah.
And I think we're as systems go.
What about youngsters who can't afford the fees? Can you get around that somehow without humiliation? Without humiliation, because there's nothing worse
Yeah.
than a child, you know, his peers finding out, oh, he's getting it paid because the parents are not well off.
Yeah, we took some. We had a committee meeting just the other night, and this was a subject. Funny enough, in the past there have been no fees, but we do feel that there needs to be an introduction, and it'd be a bit in advance of me to say, but I'm guesstimating for children at the initial stage for a year's membership, and the season runs roughly September to April. It's going to be in the region of £10
For the year. For the year.
per annum, because
That's very
we
good.
want the sport to be accessible.
Yeah.
If in due course, and we're learning from the experience of other clubs on the island who have different tariffs, if you like. But you know, we've been absent, we're coming back, so that would be it.
Right. Okay. Simon, are you going to comment on the junior golf at the golf club? Or is that a
question for Mark?
It's probably more.
curveball?
Yeah. Okay, so I've been back on the island for excuse me, sorry. I'll just silence that somehow. I don't. Anyway, there we
Probably
go.
Tony LeBlanc saying that something's gone wrong.
Apologies for that. I'll put it on.
Don't worry. Don't worry.
Okay, so what's my involvement? Well, first of all, I'm a lifelong member of the club. My father taught youth, and I thought that was something worth doing. Again, with the assistance of the Alderney Sporting Foundation and others, over about a 5-year period, I was able to bring over professional golfers who would run down at the school and then up at the golf club for selected and older youth to experience golf. The problem is, frankly, when I gave notice of approaching 2 years to step down, there's nobody who willingly stepped forward. So that has gone into abeyance, and in some ways serves to show, if you like, the need for the sort of activity that ASF presents.
Yeah.
Because we need somehow to transcend that and make it more sustainable, continuing. The other thing to say, it's got to be said, is, of course, if youth choose to go on to secondary education, it's off island, so we lose them. So, you know, you can coach them up to a certain age, but then actually they're gone. And then there are competing interests as a teenager.
That applies to everything, doesn't it? I mean, you know.
Yeah, but it's less I think, to be with a doddery old git like me going around the golf course. Although I tell you what, a highlight: Holly Jenkins scored a hole in a birdie on the second.
Right.
There are a lot of adults who've never come close to that,
me included.
Was there a prize? Was there a prize for that? Special prize?
But I've been playing it for 50 years. So, you know, this is work in progress.
Yeah.
We have all the kit installed by the school.
Good.
And we know that the professional golfers will come again, but we need somebody who's going to take it on.
Okay, so anybody watching, listening, applications, please, to Mr. Mark Smith on that one. Yeah.
Yes, or the captain of the golf club.
But I mean, it is my experience with Alderney and with clubs and societies that you really end up with somebody that's going to be a strong leader who
Yeah.
bears most of the brunt of running the thing. You know, the committee will always back you up, but you've got to be fairly forceful to take these things forward.
I think there has been a bit of a sea change actually in recent years, because I think there was a lot of people sort of had these expectations that, you know, on the mainland there's all these clubs and there's all these wonderful facilities, and you know there's all these coaches, and I keep having to remind people that 99% of coaching of young people's sport outside the school environment is done by parents
Yes.
who get themselves trained to help. And you know that's definitely been one of our things that we have been focusing on. I'm working quite closely with Marie-Claire Jean and, you know, Rob, the new phys ed teacher at the school, who's doing a brilliant job actually.
Yeah.
And so and as one of the things we've improved from the foundation was we used to do a sort of annual round of funding, and people would apply and then we would give money, which we still do to the clubs. But actually, we've now created a separate committee on Ireland, you know, that Marie-Claire is sort of effectively chairing. They have their own bank account, and we can provide money to them. So actually, they don't need to come and ask us all the time. If they need another 10 footballs, if it's within a certain price, they just get on and organize it, and also help getting parents more involved and making sure there's that commitment there. So I think that is one thing definitely where, you know, when I've just been at the tennis club now, there were probably 12, 14 parents sitting around watching the kids and helping. And that has been a big sea change from probably 5 years ago, where it was, it was left to the likes of Mark or Keith Ives on the table tennis, or, you know, whoever, other people in those sports that, you know, carry weight on the tennis, you know, to carry the flame. Whereas actually now the younger parents are really seeing the benefits, and because it's a virtuous circle, because the kids are enjoying it so much.
That's good.
It's a good point you make there, Simon, because just referring to the boxing club, going forwards, we actively want parent participation, whereas previously it's been the coaches come back in an hour and collect your kid. That needs transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go on to the shooting club. I mean, that's a pretty good setup from what I understand, but equally, I also understand there are people on the island that would like to close it down. I think that's dreadful.
Have you any immediate thoughts on that?
I'm not involved in the shooting club, and for full disclosure, actually shooting doesn't. We're a UK-based charity, and actually shooting is something we're not allowed to support as a foundation, which Mark's aware of. So so Mark, back to you, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so I've got 2 reference points. I'm a member, but I'm not particularly active. I go up in there and embarrass myself with my skills every now and then. But as they develop an indoor range, which is something I was pretty good at as a youth, you will see me there. At the the Guernsey Island Games, we had, I think it was 8 or 9 shooters, and half of those were not adult. And wow, did they do us proud. Now, this is testament to the expert tuition which we have on the island. The more I get to know the people involved there who facilitate and coach, you begin to realize we've got some seriously qualified and very capable individuals. And that's reflected in the progress of the youngsters who were there. If I can, I'll just tell you, first day, I got marooned at Plymouth because I'd failed to realize, having arrived there, that I couldn't get away because the triathlon was going by. So that gave me the opportunity to be with 3 youth.
Yeah.
These are people under the age of 16, with a world champion there, and how they conducted themselves and the achievements that they had. People started putting their arms around them. They were being coached when they weren't shooting. I was so impressed with their deportment and the reputation they gave Alderney. Now, I bring this right back again. This is a club that delivers. It deserves to continue. I am aware, but only on the surface, that there are people with mandates, agendas, whose only purpose, it would seem, is to try and close that sporting facility down for reasons which I don't understand. And they're certainly inconsistent with the values that I hold.
Presumably the seatbelt and crash helmet brigade.
Yes, precisely. And there's no point in giving names because
No,
they
we
know
won't.
who.
No need to do anything like that. We all know who
Yeah,
they are. But you know, the fact
yeah.
of the matter is that
Olympic sports. It's not like we're talking about something on the edge of society. I
that's
mean, these are
right. Yeah,
mainstream sports
yeah.
that we actually.
Under
That's,
strict supervision as well. Yeah,
yeah, of course.
Oh, I cannot emphasize enough how well they are administered and sessions run with safety with a big S.
yeah,
It's a superb.
yeah.
And actually, as I understand it, they've probably got more members than any other club on the island.
Well, I think Edward Hill would
Yeah,
now. I mean, Edward at the
yeah.
tennis club. To be fair, they're now over 200 members now.
Well, they're
Oh,
approaching the club.
It's probably
Yeah,
the
yeah,
best shooting club. So it's
yeah,
great
yeah.
to see
Hey,
some of these
Simon, we're basing that on 2023 figures.
Yeah, yes, we've been around a little while,
Yes.
haven't we? But the point is,
yeah,
it's sustainable if
Yeah.
people will only stop trying to serve their own, what appears to be very narrow-minded agenda.
yeah, and we're seeing a lot of that politically in the UK at the moment. So
Good God, yes.
yeah, okay. Enough said on that one. We've talked briefly about the football club at the beginning of this interview. They're doing okay because Reg Atkins was a great driver on that, wasn't he?
Yeah, no. I always said about Reg that Reg's greatest strength was his absolutely unbounded energy and enthusiasm.
Yeah.
But one of Reg's only weaknesses was his unbounded energy and enthusiasm, because at times it slightly got us. It was difficult to make some changes. But look, Reg has got a wonderful legacy, of what he was able to do with that club, and we would always thank him for what he did. The club is moving forward. The great thing is that actually now the amount of young children that are playing football, and there's a particular cohort who are doing very well. The problem is a lot of issues around children playing with others of different ages, so they have to play in a very tight age range, which when you have fewer children makes life difficult. And the likes of Theo Govine, he has to travel to Guernsey a lot just to get that competitive sport. Heidi Torber was someone back in the day the Sports Foundation supported quite heavily, who did fantastically well, and is obviously is still in Guernsey playing football. So there are some challenges there, and obviously I'm not going to talk about the adult team. I mean, I think it's had a wonderful period, but the 25-year-olds became 30-year-olds, and the 35-year-olds, and the likes of Josh and Steve Concannon, who are stalwarts, but age starts to catch up with you, and so actually there is a gap. And the job, I think, is to get some of those younger, very talented players coming through and to build for sort of 10 years' time, and not try and pretend that we're going to do it next year and put it in place.
Okay.
So I think the club is in a good place. I mean, the facilities are good. I mean, they're always trying to improve things, and it would be dead if it wasn't for the kids, and that's the most important thing for now.
It's all about feeding through, isn't it? Getting the youngsters to come in as the next generation.
Yeah. I mean, it's a reflection of a number of issues here, but I mean, sadly, wearing my hat as chairman of the Alderney Island Games Association, the realization was that although we fought hard for Alderney to get a bye as a consequence of not getting through to the Guernsey competition, which was crazy, but within the rules of the International Island Games. So, and I witnessed the draw, and it was all done proper, but nonetheless, it defied common sense. One of the issues that goes with that, there are people who may have chosen not to hang up their hat had they had the lure of international competition. This is something you want. A week or two ago, even though we had a bye to the Alderney Games next July, the club came to the realization, for the right reasons, that they would not compete. It's a real shame. We got 20 people who would otherwise have been there in the mix. But as Simon says, and I think we all agree, okay, let's be aware of where we are, but let's build for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. What about the cricket club? Because they don't play cricket as a sport at school, do they? When I was a kid, we used to have cricket matches in the afternoons, this sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I think I think there's some positive news there. There are quite a lot of parents with kids that are very interested in cricket. I saw John, I was playing against Alderney only a few weeks ago for the Island versus visitors, and enjoyed watching John and Billy House batting together.
Yeah.
So some of those things are starting to happen and come through, and so actually I think the club's got a good future. I mean, they've done an amazing job renovating the clubhouse now. They've got good financial support, and they're making sure they're getting young people coming through. They do training, and we're putting the links in with the school. So actually, I'm quite positive about the cricket, and there are some very enthusiastic parents and children, and the club itself still plays actually a surprisingly good standard of cricket. It usually depends on when Mattin wants his staff back at the Curry House. Because they've got some Muno in particular is someone that I slightly fear having to go and face to bowl. So I'm usually happy when he has to go back at 6 o'clock. But but the point is that I think the club's in good health, and we're making sure we still bring competitive teams over to play them. And we're talking about Alderney coming on tour to the UK next year. So I think the club's in a good place.
Okay, let's get on to the swimming pool.
Yeah.
You have plans for a new one on a different site. Is that
Well,
right?
look, let me just take a step back here. I mean, I have to be honest with you, and I'm not going to pull my punches now, actually, is that despite everything we've said, Tony, this island does not have a sports hall or a swimming pool for the children.
Yeah.
And it's not just the children, actually. Also, I was watching the ladies this morning as I played paddle tennis, doing their exercises down next to the paddle tennis court. But that's fine in September. But what happens in December?
Yeah.
And so, this is a big issue. And we worked, and everyone knows the history of it. But I just want to take you back to 2021, where the Sports Foundation worked very hard and worked very closely, actually, with some of the politicians in Alderney. I mean, Alex Snowden and Steve Roberts did a fantastic job with Guernsey. I've actually got it here. Guernsey actually put forward a 10-year plan for sport. And due to the hard work of Steve and Alex, I'm just going to read it out to you. This was actually voted through in the Guernsey plan for sport. And it said, in particular, the committee is keen to work with colleagues in Alderney as much as is practical to support the development of facilities for sport and physical activity, to include the potential development of a sports hall and the completion of the swimming pool, as well as ensuring there are adequate opportunities for individuals and teams participating in sports off island. And their point is, they said that given that education is a transferred service and the links between education, sport and physical activity is clear, Alderney will benefit from the implementation of these actions. So back then, we were politically in a very strong place where Guernsey had recognised the issue with this, and particularly in relation to education, and therefore that accesses the funding because it's a transfer service. Yeah. At the same time, I then took the initiative of the Sports Foundation, and we undertook a project to look at what the options were in Alderney. So we spent nearly £15,000 on that, and we brought together the best people in the Channel Islands. So yes, Duncan Goodhue, who has spent 25, 30 years basically helping build swimming pools across the country. We had Steve Sharman and Jeremy Frith from the Sports Commission. Steve Sharman is one of the experts in the UK on sports facilities. We had Brian Tyrrell, who's one of the biggest architects in Guernsey. He's done a lot of the big infrastructure projects for Guernsey education. And we had Mark McKenzie, a structural engineer, and then we had a few others like Martin Woodward. But the point was, it was a very, very as good a team as you're going to find. We put the proposal forward, and not only that, it was voted through by Policy and Finance in Alderney, who voted through that which everyone forgets, that they were going to thank the Guernsey Sports Foundation, the Alderney Sports Foundation, for their work. They were going to interact with both education and policy and resources and health in Guernsey, and also they would instruct the CEO of Alderney to take a project forward to work out the costings and scope to move this forward.
Okay.
Guess what happened, Tony?
Yeah.
Guess what happened?
Go on, tell me.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And actually, it was only a year later that I received a thank you letter after they were chased by the president of the Guernsey Sports Commission, who couldn't believe that nothing had happened. So the reality is, I'll be honest with you, is that politically, we put everything in place for the politicians in Alderney to at least make some progress, and they bottled it. They did nothing. And I'm not going to pull my punches on this because they didn't.
Well, Simon, you should not, because I've had a mirror experience. On return from the Island Games in Guernsey last year, we hosted fairly soon afterwards a gathering at the golf club.
attended.
Yeah. And the intention actually was to thank them, because actually they, across the sports, had achieved relative to their own abilities, and had done, I think, a power of good for how people may perceive Alderney in so doing. And I said towards the end of my talk, having talked through the achievements and so on from my perspective, I said, and I repeated what the goals of the International Island Games were, and one of the things was, and I look forward to greater intervention from the states. I was rather shocked 5 minutes later to be approached by a states member to say, we haven't got any money. Now, my reply was, don't give me your problems, I've got my own. I'll still be writing to you when we can substantiate what we think would be a legitimate cause. Actually, it really did knock me back. And those who also witnessed that, including, I believe, the Lieutenant Governor who was there, came to realize that there is currently a lack of balance in the decision taking. And there does appear to be pet projects and divisiveness. Sport in the community should be a very simple vision. It should be also deliberately undertaken, because nobody's saying this is easy. But if we don't have the political support, then frankly, it comes back then to the grassroots support. And we've already talked about how fragile that can be.
So if we just bring it forward to where we are today, Tony, just to finish where we are, is that look, I think there are 5 stakeholders actually in relation to the swimming pool, and maybe a sports hall, but in relation to the swimming pool, and all of them are well-meaning. So you have the trustees of the swimming pool, who I think find themselves in a difficult position because they took £400,000 of public of donations and £250,000 of public money, so £650,000 was taken, and we don't have a swimming pool. And so they find themselves in that invidious position where, well-meaning as they were, they want to make sure that happens. You have the States of Alderney, who now find themselves as the owner of that building, because I think, I haven't got to the bottom of it, but I believe the lease has reverted back to the States of Alderney. So they now own that building. So they have a building sitting there that is now on their balance sheet. You have the people who donated the money, who clearly would like to see something happen with that money. And then you have 2 other stakeholders, which are probably the most important ones, is you have the children and the people of Alderney, who deserve the right to have a pool and to be worked in. And then actually the other bit is the school, and it's linked into education. And so there are these stakeholders that want things to work. My position from this, and the Sports Foundation position, is pretty clear, and I've written to the states members about this, which is that we need to have an open discussion. We're not saying that our proposal necessarily has to be the right proposal, but we need to look at what the options are in an open and transparent way. I mean, one of our key messages was that a 25-metre indoor swimming pool is not fit for purpose of an island of Alderney because of the costs of maintaining that over time. Our proposal, which is what is used across Europe, is an 8-metre indoor swimming pool, no different to what you might put on the side of your house, which you can do a lot of stuff with babies, pregnant mothers, all sorts, you can learn how to turn over in your kayak, etc. And an outdoor swimming pool, which between the 2 of them is much more cost effective, much more usable, etc., etc. Where we are is the states are currently hiding behind a leisure study that was undertaken by Avison Young. These people didn't even come to the island, and the swimming pool wasn't even mentioned in the study, but they're hiding behind that. But actually what we are aware of, because it is in the policy and finance minutes, is that they are looking at an individual proposal, which may well be the right proposal, but it's being looked at in a unilateral way, and they're using confidential annexures, policy and finance meeting after policy and finance meeting, to keep this behind closed doors. I have offered the team, Duncan Goodhue, the Sports Commission in Guernsey have all said they are very happy to help, but it literally falls on stony ground. And I'm aware that behind the scenes there is a proposal that I'm not going to say that it's the wrong proposal, but it's one that needs to be looked at in the context of what the other options are if the states of Alderney are going to spend more public money. But there is a way through here. There is a decent solution. There are a variety of solutions that can work, but we just need someone with some political will to do this in a public and open, transparent way.
Yeah.
Hopefully, after the election in November, perhaps we'll get more enlightened people on board. Meantime, the building that's currently down at the school is structurally incapable of taking a swimming pool, yes?
So the position is that it cannot have a swimming pool as as built. So the concrete is not of a good enough standard, and that is in. If you go to our website, you'll see there is our report. It is all in there. There's two structural engineers.
Okay. Can I make a point
The other hand, Tony, is that the state of Alderney value that building at about £850,000. I've had someone informally value it at about 1.2 million. So actually, the way through here is that actually, despite everyone's donations, actually you have an asset that's worth somewhere in the region, let's say, of £1 million, sitting on the school site with could be repurposed. Part of our proposal was that building is repurposed as a community hub. It could be used by the school. It just needs to be fitted out. I mean, it is a sound, solid, watertight building. What we don't believe is a building that's fit to have an indoor 25-meter swimming pool within it.
So could it be used as a squash court? Could it be used for indoor cricket? Nets?
No, actually, it's not quite good enough for that in terms of being used as a sports hall. But there are a variety. There is if you look, Policy and Finance has been looking at things around a community hub or other facility. The school itself potentially does need more space. So actually, having received an asset that's worth somewhere in the region of £1 million, maybe the states, having received that asset effectively for free, yes, they put £250,000 in. My view would be the quid pro quo would be to that could therefore ultimately effectively release some cash in return to help do a swimming pool or a sports hall. Everyone would be happy. The trustees could move on because they've delivered. We can ultimately end up with a swimming pool, but actually their money has been seen to be used well.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Everyone who donated could see how that therefore follows through, etc., etc., etc. So I think there is a way through, but it needs a bit of creative thinking and to think outside the box that we have to put a pool in that building.
Yeah. Gentlemen, I'm sorry to have to say that Mr. Zoom is telling me that we've got less than 2 minutes left. I found this very enlightening, and I've really enjoyed talking to you both about this. And I sincerely hope that something will be done, particularly in connection with the swimming situation, because in my view, it's totally out of order for those kids to have gone all those years without a facility.
Couldn't agree more.
And we look forward to the survey has been returned from the Ivory Tower in London. And I've been informed as of 2 weeks ago that it is back here and the civil service is now poring over it before they release. What I will say is in interview over an hour with those who conducted the survey, they themselves said on 3 occasions that the survey wasn't worth the ink it was printed on.
Well, what can you say? It's been a great pleasure talking to you both. We'll have another one in some future date. I mean, Mark's almost the star of the show these days. He's on very regularly.
Yeah. I'm going into hibernation. It's the winter. The leaves are falling off the trees.
Good to meet you, Simon. Take care, both. Thank you very much. Cheers for now. Bye.
Bye-bye.